Hello everyone again, this is Minicoder with a new tutorial in the ASP.NET MVC series. This tutorial is going to be about routing and how it combines the controller, the view, and the view model and makes everything work the way it needs to work. Before we get too much into the actual code of the route, I just want to go over a few things I added while I was doing the code for this. One is this employee controller here. It used to be employee to make the routing make more sense, and that will make more sense as we go along. There's an S now, so it's employees controller. And then along with that, you'll have to also update the folder that relates to the views that are under that employee controller. And if you remember correctly, last time we said that the left-hand side of the controller name is what the route uses for the name of the controller in the route itself, and then it also takes that name and matches it to where the structure is that it's looking for all its views, which in this case it's views, and then it's looking for the employees because of the employees to the left hand side of the controller. And then you'll have your views that will match your methods, which we said would be called actions, and they return a type action result most 9 times out of 10. There are other result types. Actually, I'm pretty sure that's pretty much 10 out of 10 that will happen, because I was thinking of the other result types, but they all inherit from action results. So, like, in fact, example of this is view is actually returning a view result, not an action result, but a view result inherits from action result. So, without getting too technical in there, so that's that. So if you rename that stuff, that'll get you what you need. And then the only other thing is, if we go to, let me see, where can I find an employee VM? So if you go to your employee VM, one thing I added here was a direct report property, and it's of type employee. Eventually we'll make this a list of direct reports, because you can have, most managers can have one or more employees that they manage. But for right now, for simplicity of the routing and showing a list versus singular, I wanted to have a easier time of showing that, so I made this a singular for now. So anyhow, like I said, I'm trying to start to pre-code some of this stuff, because the problem is I'm finding that if I'm just completely typing while I'm talking, and I haven't pre-tested anything at all, the videos are going way over. So I wanted to pre-map out the routes for this and test them thoroughly and make sure that they'll all work. So most of you, if you've been following along, probably have this default route, which is great. It'll catch most of the scenarios that you have, and if you're not looking to be very granular or not very specific in the way that your URL is going to be constructed, you probably are fine with just this. However, for two things. One is so that you understand how routing works, as well as when you get into more things like making it structural towards like a API type of structure, you want to be able to know how to write routes. So what I did here was I left this in here because most of the time you have it as a catch-all. So if none of the other routes, it starts from top down. Okay, and if it finds any of the routes that match, it'll stop right there and it won't go any further. So that's something to keep in mind, that when you when you start playing around and you want to make sure that your routes hit, the first thing you want to, if you go with this style, there is a newer style which I'll get to probably in the next tutorial. But in this style of making routes where it's all in one file like this, you want to make sure that you structure it in such a way that the top one is the one that you want it to hit the most, and then the second, and then the third, and so on. I would recommend going from most specific to the top to the most loosely at the bottom. So in other words, right here, my highest one is direct reports, which is going employees, the employee ID, direct reports, and then direct ID, direct report ID. The lowest one right before default is called employees, and it gets all the employees. So there's no filtering going on there. So you'll notice, similar to the way we're doing the route, or they did the route here, we're giving it a name. Everything needs a unique name. Every route needs a unique name. Otherwise, it's gonna just bark at you. It's not gonna work. In fact, I almost caught myself here, but the one that's looking for employee ID, I named it employee. The one that's getting all the employees, I named employees. Now the next thing you'll see is the URL. The URL is exactly as it states. It is what the user will put in after the name of the server or the google.com slash. That next slash, that's what the URL is going to compose of from the right of the domain, if you're used to web or networking terminology. Then the controller can be the next slash if needed. But in this case we're not going to. It's going to be the same as the URL, and then the action is the last slash. In this particular case, because of the way this was structured, you actually don't have to put all in, because I got rid of the index action method. Here you'll notice we did employee, because what we're doing here is we're making a route that's employees slash employee ID, and I'll show you what this maps to in a second. You'll notice that the controller is going to employ employees just like all the others. Action is employee. So far, so good. The last one, that's the most complex one, is a two-layered approach here, where we have a direct reports name. And the name can be arbitrary. I can just blah blah blah, and it really doesn't matter as long as it's unique. This is where the most important part is. So this says if somebody types in slash employees slash an employee ID slash direct reports slash an ID, then this is the route we'll take. And we're going to default to the controller employees and the action type direct reports. So, what does all this mean? Well, one thing I will say that is worth mentioning is if this is very foreign to you, I would definitely recommend looking up Web API restful. Look that up right now. Any of these, this is decent right here, actually, to give you an idea of what restful is and how to do it. What I just want to show you right here is this is kind of what we're structuring here. Without this, the question mark, that's a different style for a different thing. But like products, right? That's your employees, then your product slash ID or employee slash ID. That's saying get me the product with ID of blah 81 in this case, right? If an ID doesn't exist, give some kind of error message, but we're not going that far. But I just want to give you an idea of what they call them resources. We're calling them URLs because it's MVC, but MVC, ASP.MVC, and Web API have kind of merged together. And I'll probably do another series on Web API because it's a whole nother beast. But that's where the paradigm, where the concept comes from, is from a RESTful or a Web API routing and pattern, if you will. So the next thing you'll notice is in employee controller we added a few things. Let me shrink everything. Come on. Hello. You're not doing what I'm telling you to do. Okay, I guess it doesn't feel like doing it. So let's just shrink everything up here. Okay, so I got rid of index, so we can I'll just get rid of it. I don't need to keep it at all anymore. Okay, so if we put these right next to each other, so the first thing we'll see is the all, right? So we've got the name is employee, that's fine. URL is employees, so that's going to say slash employees. Okay, what do we look for if we see a slash employees? Controller employees. Okay, now we have controller employees. Now what action does it default to? All. Oh, okay. And you can pass an ID, but I'm not putting in the URL to utilize. I just left that in there just to show that you can do it. So if we just do URL slash employee, if we just do slash employees, it should fall into this route, go into all, and get us our employees. So let's run that and see what happens. And I put breakpoints, and we're going to go through each one of these. Okay. Employee, you'll notice that my auto complete worked here. Alright, so here we go. So we hit all. Now this get employees method is just a private method here. All it's doing is exactly what it was doing before. I just abstracted it out to make a new list of employee VMs and then populate the list. The only extra thing I added in here is because we did the direct report. This one person, Robert Red, it has a direct report of direct report. I know I got very fancy with that. So we'll end up hitting here, go through the view, come back, and there you go. And so you've got your employee list right here. Perfect. What's the next one? Let's see. So if we were to go here, oops, our next one would be employee slash employee ID. So that means if I say employees and then I do slash, let's see, we know there is a 1, right? So let's do 1. Now we're hitting this other employee. Why? Well, because we went slash employees and gave it an ID, and that ID is something called employee ID. And these squigglies mean look for something with a parameter of employee ID and give it the value of employee ID. So if you hover over here, you'll see employee slash employee ID. And lo and behold, we have an employee ID over here. So the names do have to match in this case. You hover over it, there's 1, because this went to controller employees, which is right up here, and action employee, which is right here. So now we'll go through here, get employees, we look for which one has the ID of 1, and we return it. And there you go. Now, one thing I will show you right now is this is pointing to the employee view. So when just like before, when after I created this method, I right clicked on it, did create view, add view, and I created this view. So this view has a model instead of a list of employees, it's just a singular employee. And I haven't gone over view bags yet, but that gave it the title that's right up here. You got your H2, that's employee edit screen right here. And then you have some razor syntax here. Now, one thing you'll notice that's kind of cool here is that you'll notice this isn't clickable and it's grayed out. That's because of this right here. Read only equals true and disabled equals true. So what text box 4 has here is you'll notice I can't hover over it, but you'll notice that the first thing is named expression, which we gave it a lambda expression, and the next thing is of type object that's an HTML attributes. So you can do new and then open and close squiggly to do a new anonymous object, And if you do at and then whatever property you would normally see in an index in an input tag in HTML, you can set it equal to the string value of what you would expect that to be. And if we inspect this element, you will notice that lo and behold, disabled equals true, read only equals true. There you go. So that's exactly what that does, is exactly as it says. So that's good. And we're at 15 minutes, so what I'm going to do real quick here is I'm just going to go over the last one, and then we'll probably finish up with showing the, let's see, should we do that now? You know what, actually I think we're going to stop this video now, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over the last route, directory reports, in the next video, and then we'll explain how the other type of routing works and what the pros and cons to each one of them are, because there's a newer type of way to do routes called route attributes, which is just like a regular data attribute, if you've used those before. So for now, I hope this helped understand some of the MVC routing complexities, and I enjoy coming up with these videos, so please give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. If you give me a thumbs down, please just let me know what I can do better, if there's anything. I strive to try to perfect these as much as I can as I go forward. So thank you for your time, and have a great evening.